Damien looked ahead and wondered if the path was in that direction. Shortly afterward, he received notifications that the new location information and the world map information had been updated, revealing that his current location was Sala's Valley 3. Examining the map, Damien realized that he was still far from his destination. He checked the location of Corneal village, situated between Terra Kingdom and Principality of Pharma, also known as the Ivory Tower of Truth. He thought to himself that he still had a long way to go and understood why the Knights hadn't taken on this mission. Damien then realized that even though he had accepted a gold-tier mission, he didn't have any equipment or party members. He acknowledged that equipment was crucial for mercenaries and he couldn't even dream of joining a party as equipment meant the most to them. Damien said to himself that it was better to go alone than waste time searching for party members, though it wasn't because he couldn't find any. Suddenly, an idea popped into his mind, and he smiled to himself. He thought that if he couldn't find party members, he could create them. Damien decided to utilize his skill, Control the Dead, which was at level 1 and allowed him to summon applicable dead monsters at 50% of their original stats. The number of summons depended on the summoner's magic power. A summoning circle appeared, and Damien wondered if the skill had worked. He received a notification stating that he had successfully summoned a creature. Suddenly, something leaped out in front of Damien and asked if he was its owner. He soon realized that the creature was a chick fluttering its tiny wings. The chick greeted him by saying, "Nice to meet you, owner." Damien sat down and observed the tiny chick, wondering what it was. Just then the chick told him that it was his summon and Damien was surprised to hear it speak. He then placed a finger on the chick's head and wondered if it would be useful. The chick wasn't pleased with his remark and seemed to be angry, telling Damien it would kill him. Damien received a new notification asking him to choose a name for the creature. Damien found it difficult to name the seemingly useless creature. Damien asked the chick if it already had a name, to which the chick replied that it couldn't possibly have a name since it had just been born. Eventually, Damien settled on the name Bundle. The chick questioned the name, and Damien explained that it was cute, like a bundle of fur, immediately correcting himself. However, the chick didn't seem to appreciate the name and began poking Damien in anger. Taken aback by the sudden aggression, Damien exclaimed that the chick's personality was terrible. And so, this was the moment when Damien's first summon, Bundle, was born. As Damien and Bundle walked through Sala's Valley 6, Damien instructed Bundle to stay close and warned that he would abandon him if he fell behind. Bundle obediently agreed. While walking, Damien noted that this was Sala's Valley 6 and there should be a side path and quickly headed in that direction, with Bundle following closely behind. When Bundle asked where they were going, Damien replied that there was somewhere he needed to go. Shortly after, he received notifications that his location information and world map had been updated, revealing that his current location was Farber Forest and to him it was the same. Damien thought to himself that they were in a relatively unpopular field, far from the village, and without many advantages. Bundle was confused and asked Damien where they were. Damien also thought to himself that this place was not well known and didn't offer much. Damien had also started streaming and was now reading through comments left by his viewers. One viewer suggested that he should skip the Farber Forest as it was faster to buy the item instead of going through the forest. Another viewer commented that the mobs in the forest took 0 damage. A third viewer mentioned that the monsters in the forest were not worth the trouble and questioned who designed them. As Damien read through the comments, he pondered the biggest reason why users avoided the Farber Forest. And he knew that the answer was a species of insect that resided in the depths of Sala's Valley. They were called Farber and could easily be found on trees, stayed in groups, and resembled unripe bananas. The Farber in front of Damien was a normal level 25 species with a unique trait: their strings were very strong and viscous, so it was important to be careful not to get hit by them. Damien looked up at the Farbers, realizing that they were pretty high up, making it challenging to attack and defend against them. However, he was confident and said to himself that he would give it a try. He walked towards the Farber, catching its attention. He activated his skill, the Decay Elixir, and prepared to throw it like a baseball pitcher. With a smile on his face, he threw the elixir directly at one of the Farber and shouted, "Shoot!" Damien cheered as the elixir hit the Farber. The acid from the skill lingered on the Farber, causing many of them to drop from the trees like fruit. And notifications started popping up, informing him that the Farber had fallen, its defensive exoskeleton had decayed, and its defense power had decreased. Damien held the blow dart in his hand, stating that the Farber looked like fruits dropping from the tree. The Farber wasn't going down easily and was angry, and it attacked Damien with sticky liquid from its mouth. Damien easily dodged the attack, saying it was too slow, and blew 3 darts at the Farber. The notifications indicated that the Farber had been poisoned, and it rolled around in pain. Damien looked at it with an evil smile and said, "Thanks for the meal." As the Farber died, notifications popped up, saying that Damien had defeated a Farber, earned EXP, and obtained a hard outer shell. Damien picked up the hard outer shell and exclaimed in happiness. He then looked at its information and saw that it was a high-rank ingredient taken from monsters. It was hard like a rock but light in weight and could be made into something great. Damien examined the hard shell in his hand, pondering its value. The demand for this item was incredibly high, surpassing its supply. He was pleased with the EXP he had obtained, but he had made the journey here for this item alone. As he looked at the comments in his stream's chat, he could see the desperation in people's requests to buy these hard outer shells. Some were willing to purchase them regardless of quantity, while others were willing to trade for mana dust or pay 300 gold. Damien couldn't help but grin at their eagerness to obtain these shells. He knew that as time passed, the demand for them would only increase, driving up their price. If he could monopolize the supply, he could become a millionaire. Damien made a decision to collect as many shells as he could. As he set out to search for more hard outer shells, he exclaimed in happiness, saying, "Let's go for gold hunting." And Bundle responded with enthusiasm, agreeing with Damien's idea. Excitement coursed through Damien as he stumbled upon a horde of sleeping Farbers. He exclaimed, "We hit the jackpot," unable to contain his excitement. Bundle asked if it was all money, but Damien didn't reply and began counting, estimating it to be worth hundreds of thousands of gold. Damien decided to take over the area, demanding that the Farbers give him their shells in exchange for sparing their lives. However, the Farbers were not pleased and began shooting liquid from their mouths in anger. Damien was taken aback by their sudden attack and quickly activated his skill, Bloody Impulse. With his heightened senses, Damien was able to easily dodge their attacks as he could see all their attack movements and how many there are. He started throwing elixir bottles at them, taunting them to come down. The Farbers started falling after getting hit, and notifications appeared indicating that they were falling and their defense power had decreased. Damien walked arrogantly towards them, announcing his arrival with the words, "Here comes the needle." However, he quickly noticed that something was off about their expressions, causing him to ask in confusion what was wrong. Before he could react, the Farbers attacked him all at once. Massive web-like substance was aimed towards him, taking him by surprise. Damien looked at the incoming attacks with a surprised face as he had never expected all of them to attack simultaneously. He also realized that he had let his guard down, and now it was too late to dodge. With the Farbers' attacks closing in on him, Damien quickly assessed his options and decided that if he couldn't dodge their attacks, he needed something to block them. That's when he spotted the little chick perched on his arm. Bundle saw Damien looking at him, and with cold sweat covering his face, he questioned why Damien was staring at him. As the Farber attacked, Damien began spinning Bundle in his hand. The dizzy-eyed Bundle let out a squawk as Damien threw it toward the incoming attacks. The attacks were then sucked into a vortex created by the spinning Bundle. Damien thought to himself that it was a close call, but he was relieved that everything was getting sucked into the vortex. He dashes towards the Farber to begin attacking the Farber. He leaps in front of them, telling them it was checkmate, and soon notifications flooded in, informing him that he had obtained experience points and had reached level 25. After the battle, Damien panted heavily and sat down, realizing how close he had come to death. The bodies of the Farber started glowing, and Damien thought that it had been a while since he had been pushed this close to the edge, but he fought with everything he had. Just then, Bundle came out of the fibers and flew towards Damien, questioning him about why he had thrown him. As Bundle poked him, Damien explained that he had no other choice and he couldn't come back alive if he died, but Bundle still couldn't forgive Damien for what he did to him. More notifications popped up, letting Damien know that he had obtained a hard outer shell. As the hard outer shells started dropping, Damien counted them and realized that it was basically a money rug. He smiled and called out to Bundle. Bundle looked at him suspiciously and asked what he wanted. Damien explained that for every hard outer shell that Bundle brought to him, he would give him 1 seed. Bundle asked happily if Damien was telling the truth, and when Damien confirmed that he was, Bundle went ahead instantly to collect hard outer shells. Damien thought to himself about how much faster Bundle was at collecting the shells than he ever could be. Another notification appeared, informing Damien that a Farber could sometimes drop 2 hard outer shells, and he should keep that in mind. Damien looked at the hard outer shell in his hand and thought about how valuable they were, and how it was definitely worth fighting for them even if it was dangerous. Currently, they cost more than 500 gold and were expected to double in value soon unless there was a big change in supply. Damien also realized that nothing had really changed much between the game he remembered and his current situation. He had cleared the summon gate using his memories from the game, which meant that he would have an easier life if he kept using his memories. Damien stood up and said that the Farber's levels were about 25, which was the same as his level. He was relieved that he wouldn't receive any level penalties. Bundle arrived with a bunch of hard outer shells and asked Damien what he was talking about. Damien didn't give any reply, and as Bundle gave him hard outer shells, he thought to himself that he had originally planned to reach Corneal village in 4 days, but now he wanted to change his plan. He decided that he would spend the next 2 days collecting as many hard outer shells as possible, and then hurry to the village in the remaining 2 days. Damien then prepared himself and said, "Let's sweep up some money." To which Bundle, sitting on his shoulders, responded with excitement and got ready for the adventure. On the edge of the forest, a mercenary heard blasts in the distance. He was immediately alerted by the sound and turned his attention towards the forest. Before he could investigate, his elder brother, Lian Chao Ming, who was leading the Shinsan startup Team 1, smacked the back of his head and scolded him for spacing out. The mercenary tried to explain that he heard a noise, but Lian Chao dismissed it and reminded him that there was no one else in the forest beside them. The mercenary still seemed unsure, but Lian Chao appeared uninterested and unimpressed. He firmly stated that they would die regardless and suggested that they continue on their journey. The mercenary hesitated but eventually complied with Lian Chao's decision. Lian Chao reminded his team that they had a quota to meet for the day and they needed to hurry. The team responded with enthusiasm, acknowledging his order. As they walked deeper into the forest, the mercenary asked Lian Chao if he was sure they could collect everything they needed for the day. Lian Chao, in a frustrated tone, told him that it didn't matter if they could or not, they had to do it somehow. He knew that hunting Farbers in this hidden and dangerous forest was difficult, but the outer shells were a major profit item for Shinsan startup. He couldn't afford to come back empty-handed or risk being reprimanded. So, he urged his team to move faster and fill their quota for the day. Lian Chao was visibly exhausted and frustrated. He wanted to get over with their task and log out. He led his team deeper into the forest in search of caterpillars, and in frustration, he asked his teammates where the caterpillars were. His teammate pointed ahead in shock, saying that all the caterpillars were dead. Lian Chao couldn't believe it and questioned his teammate's sanity. He turned his gaze forward, claiming that they must have gone blind since he couldn't see any reason why the Farbers would be dead. However, when he noticed the lifeless Farbers, he was shocked and angry. He wondered aloud who could have arrived before them and killed all the Farbers. This was a major blow to Shinsan startup, as they had been monopolizing the supply by killing all users who came across their path. Lian Chao couldn't understand how someone had managed to get to their territory without them knowing. In a fit of rage, Lian Chao demanded his team member to find the person who had invaded their territory and killed the Farbers. The teammate, visibly panicked, agreed and promised to find the culprit. Just then, Damien suddenly appeared there. Liang Chao stood nearby and looked at him in shock. Damien picked up a hard outer shell and exclaimed that it was right there. He then continued to pick up more hard outer shells while muttering to himself as Liang Chao wondered what the hell was it. Liang Chao looked at Damien and noticed the boar head, as Damien tells himself that the forgot some shells and needed to look around more. Liang Chao began to rage as veins appeared on his face. He also noticed that Damien had only equipped himself with some cloth and a boar head. He wondered how a guy who looked like an NPC could have entered the area. Liang Chao shouted at Damien, calling him a bored bastard and asking him what he was doing. Damien turned back and looked at Liang Chao calmly, asking if he had a problem. Liang Chao's teammates became angry and started shouting at Damien, threatening to split him open if he didn't give them everything he had taken. Damien looked at them with a questioning expression on his face as he didn't understand their language. He couldn't even tell if they were from North Korea or China. Liang Chao asked Damien if he knew who he was. Damien casually responded with a question, asking, "Who are you?" Liang Chao, angered by Damien's response, revealed that he was Liang Chao Ming. Damien repeated the name and suddenly remembered something. He pointed at him while saying that Liang Chao was the evil factory leader who he had read on the community forum before. That he had appeared in Sailor's Valley, the Chinese farming factory who was killing other fellow users. Just as the stream chats were telling Damien about the group, Damien called them violent and garbage human beings whom didn't expect to come across. Liang Chao and his teammates smirked, and Liang Chao said that Damien had just found out, but it was too late and he was now dead and it was the end for him. Liang Chao and his teammates surrounded Damien, and Liang Chao walked towards him, asking if he understood his situation and that it was game over. Damien stood there, fearless, and scratched his ear saying what the hell, asking if they were paying rent here. Liang Chao, confused, asked what he meant, but Damien repeated his question, asking if they were paying rent here. Liang Chao was shocked again by Damien's fearless questions. Damien looked at them with cold eyes and warned them to play nice before he started getting violent unless they all wanted to die. Liang Chao, unable to control his anger any longer, ordered his teammates to kill Damien. Though they hesitated, Liang Chao shouted at them, urging them to do it. They then launched arrows at Damien, but he dodged them easily. Damien then ran towards Liang Chao with his hand in front, catching him and bending his shoulder. He said that their actions were too obvious. Damien looked down at Liang Chao with an evil smile and stated that as confident as Liang Chao and his teammates were in ganging up on one person, he was just as confident in PvP. Liang Chao growls in pain as Damien held his arm. Seeing their leader in pain, Liang Chao's teammates were outraged and began shooting arrows at Damien, telling him to let their leader go. The arrows fly towards Damien as he sees it, however, Damien used Liang Chao as a shield to block the arrows. As Liang Chao got hit by the arrows, he shouted at his teammates, questioning why they were shooting him. Damien then threw Liang Chao to the side and charged toward the group, starting a brutal fight. He effortlessly defeated his attackers without getting hit once. As he ran toward another duo standing on the side, they shouted in fear as Damien approached them. One of them charged at Damien with a sword, hurling insults and curses. Damien quickly responded and blocked the sword attack using his steel wrist guard, which was impenetrable. The attacker was surprised by Damien's strong defense and began trembling in fear. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Damien used it to strike him down. Liang Chao, who had been lying behind Damien, saw this and cursed him, threatening to kill him. Liang Chao began preparing to attack with an arrow, but Damien was one step ahead and saw him. He rushes somewhere and used the fallen attacker as a springboard to leap toward the Liang Chao, catching him off guard. Liang Chao looked at Damien in shock. Without hesitation, Damien warned Liang Chao to not think about making it out of here alive. In Shinsan, at a startup farming factory, an employee burst open the door and shouted in a panicked voice. Mingchen, who was smoking a cigarette, expressed annoyance at the sudden intrusion. He threw an ashtray at the employee and reminded them to knock before entering. He then asked what the problem was, but warned that if it wasn't urgent, he would harm the employee. The employee responded that there was a big problem, and Mingchen asked for more details. The employee explained that Team 1 of the week had just been sabotaged. Mingchen was shocked and asked the employee to repeat themselves. The employee clarified that it was indeed Team 1 of the week. Mingchen was furious and banged his fists on the table. He couldn't believe that Team 1 had been defeated, as there were so many people on that team. He wondered if it was the Japanese and if they wanted to start a fight with them. The employee quickly clarified that it wasn't the Japanese who had attacked their team. Mingchen, still furious, grabbed the employee's collar and demanded to know who was responsible. The employee hesitated before reminding Mingchen of the person who had deposited 3 million gold into the game bank. Mingchen remembered the incident and asked what it had to do with the current situation. The employee revealed that the person was a Korean with the username Jinsung123 and that they were responsible for the attack. Before the employee could finish their words, Mingchen struck them in the face and accused them of lying. The employee, scared and trembling, insisted that it was true. Mingchen asked if it was all the doing of one person, who had placed a nuclear-level item into the game bank and killed all their Team 1 members. The employee replied affirmatively, and Mingchen demanded a detailed explanation without leaving out any information. In the midst of the Farber Forest, Damien heard notifications popping up. He looked at the notifications and saw that he had gained a lot of experience points and had reached level 30. He smirked and acknowledged that it was expected, considering he had killed around 50 players. Then, he received notifications that he had obtained some rare items like a hard outer shell, basic steel, elven branch, and rubber tree sap, plus there were some rare items. Damien was pleased with the amount of loot he had acquired from just one fight. He knew that some of these items were stolen, but he couldn't help but feel excited. Looking at his inventory, he saw that he had collected a lot of items in large amounts, including hard outer shells, basic steel, basic cloth, basic leather, and white herbs. He also had 36 sets of hunter's leather armor, 11 light short bows, and around 192,000 gold. He realized that he would have never earned this much on his own without looting. He could exchange them for cash and get millions of bucks, or if he waited for the currency exchange rate, he could get hundreds of millions. He was relieved that he wouldn't have to worry about sending money home for a while. Damien decided that he would convert the goods into cash and wondered what to do with the items. He chose a book from his inventory, and a notification appeared saying that he had used the Apocalypse Invocation, the Book of the Black Covenant. Bundle looked at the book and asked Damien what it was. Damien replied that he was going to make some equipment. The book's features were displayed in the notification, including item value judgment, item extraction, item synthesis, item creation, and item dissection. Damien selected item dissection, and notifications appeared one after another as he dissected the superior falchion, light short bow, and hunter's leather armor. Damien looked at the items with a grin and thought that it was nice to sell all the items, but he needed some higher-grade ingredients. Damien remembered having some higher-grade ingredients before. However, as he was about to continue, a notification popped up, announcing that he had earned the title Lonely Hyena. Damien was surprised and exclaimed that he had never seen that title before. After reading the title's description, he realized that it was given to those who had looted more than 9,999 items from other users and were leading the environment cleanup movement. The title also came with benefits, such as a 100% likelihood of detecting dropped items within a 100-meter radius, a 100% likelihood of detecting someone's item, and a 100% likelihood that an opponent would drop an expensive item. However, there was a warning about the dangers of excessive looting, as it could lead to obesity and various health conditions. Damien was amazed by the condition to pick up more than 9,999 items to receive the title. He realized that before his regression, he only fought in large-scale wars with blood alliances or organizations, so he never really had the time to pick up dropped items as he didn't really need them. Despite feeling a little embarrassed about the title's condition, he acknowledged that its effects were pretty good. But before he could continue, Bundle interjected and teased him about always picking up items from the ground. Damien retorted and told him to be quiet. Suddenly, Damien had a realization. He thought aloud that with this title, it would be more beneficial to kill other users instead of hunting monsters. Damien grinned evilly at the idea and surveyed his surroundings. He calculated that there were around 50 employees, and if they worked day and night shifts, there must be more than 100 of them. He realized that this was a significant number of potential targets. Moreover, if one farming factory could produce thousands of items per week, the money he could earn would be astronomical. Damien smirked at the thought. He then started walking, contemplating the fact that after all the losses, Shinsan startup was bound to come after him. Damien knew he had to deal with them eventually. But for now, he decided to work with them as killing other users was a great plan to earn some extra cash. A group of people were seen panting heavily as they walked through a forest. The group leader, Chang Tingbao, Shinsan startup night shift team 1 leader, expressed his frustration and exhaustion at the situation. They had been chasing a Korean player for more than 35 hours. One of the team members asked how much longer they had to go, while another expressed concern about the lack of any signs of human or animal life. Chang Tingbao also thought to himself about how much longer they had to chase Damien. He then instructed his team to hold on for a bit longer, reminding them that all they needed to do was get rid of the Korean. When one of the team members tried to voice his opinion, Chang Tingbao cut him off, threatening him that if he spoke one more word, he would be dead. Another team member suggested using return spells to make the chase easier, but Chang Tingbao quickly dismissed the idea as buying return spells was too expensive. He urged his team to keep pushing forward and not waste any more time. Suddenly, Chang Tingbao stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. Something felt off. He had never heard that voice before, and it was suddenly too quiet. As he looked back, he noticed that his whole group had disappeared. Fear took over him as he pulled out his sword, wondering what kind of treacherous person had done this without him hearing anything. Suddenly, he heard a voice warning him not to draw his sword. Chang Tingbao looked around and saw Damien sitting on a tree branch in front of him, with an evil grin on his face. Damien challenged Chang Tingbao to come forward and then threw a punch, suggesting that Chang Tingbao take a little nap. Chang Tingbao slowly opened his eyes and tried to shout, but quickly realized that his mouth was gagged with cloth. He looked around and saw several people, whom he referred to as chicks, standing over him. Some of them were tightening the ropes that bound his hands and legs, making it impossible for him to move. Chang Tingbao felt confused and disoriented, unable to understand why he was tied up and surrounded by these unfamiliar individuals. One of the chicks, who was standing on his arm, informed the others that Chang Tingbao had woken up and suggested informing the captain. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, questioning whether Chang Tingbao was properly secured. Chang Tingbao recognized the voice and turned his head towards the source. He realized that it belonged to the Korean he had met before. Damien told Bundle to think of better lines next time, but Bundle refuted back saying Damien sucked at acting. Panic started to set in as Liang Chao realized he needed to find a way to escape. Damien noticed that Chang Tingbao was awake and commented on it. He then ordered Bundle to pull up Chang Tingbao's sleeves. Bundle complied and started pulling up Chang Tingbao's sleeves. Damien revealed 3 poison darts and taunted Chang Tingbao, assuring him not to be scared as they hadn't even started yet. As Damien attacked him, he told Chang Tingbao that it would sting a little. Chang Tingbao felt the impact of the darts and heard notifications popping up. He saw that his character had been poisoned, and his health points, HP, were gradually decreasing. Damien grinned at him and remarked that it didn't hurt that bad. He warned Chang Tingbao that this was just the beginning and to prepare for what lay ahead. As time passed, Damien lay exhausted on the ground, listening to notifications popping up on his screen. He had obtained a pair of Ranger's gaiters, an old hinge belt, and 3,888 gold. Damien sighed, feeling tired. He had managed to eliminate all 100 members of Shinsan's day and night shift teams without resting for 48 hours straight. He was even more exhausted from summoning all the chicks. Damien checked his status window and noticed the skill Necromancy, which was at level 1 and allowed him to summon creatures. The summon stats were lower than he had expected, but he had no limit on how many he could summon. Most summoning skills had time limits, and the summons would disappear once the user ran out of mana, but this skill had no such restrictions. Damien told the chicks that their work was done and that they should go home. However, one of the chicks refused to leave, saying that the Soul Realm was boring and that it was much more fun where they were. Damien thought to himself that although these chicks' abilities were not great, with enough mana and casting time, he could summon an infinite number of them. They had proven useful when he used them to locate the Shinsan guys. Damien questioned if there were any more pursuers after them. The chick confirmed that there weren't any. Damien smirked and said that killing and looting them had been fun, and their reactions were priceless. Bundle looked at Damien, confused, and asked what he was talking about. Damien thought to himself that he only needed to use one kill with the poison darts and didn't need to use the decay elixir or bloody impulse. He believed it would be better to use necromancy since avoiding the death penalty was difficult. Damien opened his status window and selected the Apocalypse Invocation, the Book of the Black Covenant. He thought to himself that the items created with this book were more expensive but also had higher stats and efficiency. As he flipped through the pages, he found the formula he was looking for. Damien called out to Bundle and the chicks then showed something in the book to Bundle and the chicks and asked if they wanted to try it out. In a skyscraper in Shanghai Pudong, a man is walking and noting that something had happened in AC which was a bit of a concern. It was Zhang Wei, the chairman of the Business Kirin Society, looked concerned upon hearing about the incident in AC. He lit up a cigarette and thought about Jingsan Startup, which was one of his sources of funds for money laundering. One of his brothers had led its development, and he had invested his funds there. Although it was a small amount of money, the fact that one person had killed everyone there was definitely concerning. As Zhang Wei started calling someone on his smartphone, he expressed his disdain and stated that he would have to get rid of the person responsible for the incident. Outside the skyscraper, one of Zhang Wei's bodyguards received an order from him on the call and confirmed his acknowledgement of Zhang Wei's order. In the world of AC, a man ran in fear, convinced that he had encountered a monster. He thought about how dozens of his teammates had been killed by just one user and how he needed to escape quickly. Suddenly, a spell appeared from above him and went towards him to attack him from above, but he managed to dodge it by jumping forward. However, he injured his knee in the process. The attacker approached the injured man thinking he didn't expect the man to dodge his spell, who turned out to be King Arthur, also known as Zhang Yuman, the man who had betrayed Damien. King Arthur complimented the man on his dodge and remarked that he wasn't a captain for nothing. The man shouted at him to stay away, but King Arthur just smirked and asked if he was scared. He reminded the man that this was what he and his teammates had wanted. King Arthur wielded a powerful staff called the 12 Wing of Tetra, which was a mage-class hero-ranked staff with many powerful options, including increased magic attack power, wisdom, faster casting speed, and additional damage. King Arthur began casting spells, and the man cried out in fear upon witnessing this. King Arthur enjoyed the fear on the man's face and told him to go tell his allies that if they wanted to defeat him, they would have to bring the entire Blood Alliance. As the man continued to cry out in fear, King Arthur's spell engulfed him. Meanwhile, Damien scratched his ear and wondered if someone was talking about him behind his back. Bundle saw this and jokingly asked if he was digging for gold there. Damien replied that it was just itchy. Suddenly, a notification appeared, informing him that new location information and world map information had been added, indicating that they were currently in Corneal village. Damien admired the beautiful view and commented on the nice and fresh air. As they walked around the village, Bundle asked where they were. Damien explained that they were at their workplace and noticed the tension in the atmosphere, so he advised Bundle to hide. Approaching the chief's house, Damien realized he had barely made it on time and had wasted a lot of time due to Shinsan. He had received valuable items and experience, but being late for his first quest was not ideal. Damien knocked on the door and asked if anyone was inside. An old man opened the door and inquired about Damien's identity. Damien introduced himself as a member of the Adventurer Guild and reminded the old man that he had requested government support. Albert, the chief of Corneal village, was overjoyed and shed tears of happiness. He invited Damien inside, offering him a seat and some refreshments. Damien noticed that Albert's wariness towards him, a foreigner, had instantly disappeared, making him realize that the problem must be quite serious. The village chief then explained that the village's sheep had been disappearing, causing anxiety among the villagers as their numbers dwindled. He requested Damien's help and asked him to be understanding of the tense situation. Damien inquired about the number of sheep that had disappeared, and the village chief responded that it was around 20 every week. He was at a loss as to where they had gone, and the problem had started about a month ago. Damien asked about the person responsible for herding the sheep and whether different people took care of them at different times. The chief explained that there was an orphan named Joseph who was in charge of the sheep. However, the chief was unsure if Joseph was actually herding the sheep or just fooling around. According to Joseph, the sheep were taken by wolves. Damien pointed out that if 20 sheep were disappearing each week, then it would make sense that wolves were behind this. The village chief shared that Joseph had a history of pranking people by lying about wolves appearing. This caused the villagers to dislike him, and he had been imprisoned because they thought he was responsible for the missing sheep. However, even though Joseph was in jail, the sheep continued to disappear. The chief pleaded with Damien to do something, as the villagers might starve to death if this continued. Upon hearing the village chief's plea, Damien agreed to help and asked to meet Joseph. With a smile, Damien promised to solve the problem quickly and find out what was really happening to the sheep.